It's common knowledge that Canada is in a housing crisis. What is lesser known is the strain that's putting on shelters for people experiencing domestic abuse. This series of stories explores this issue, starting with one Edmonton woman's struggle to get away from a dangerous situation.
It was a lot of emotional and verbal abuse at the beginning, and then the real physical violence probably started about 3 years after that.
Chelsea Brown is still getting back on her feet after a 6-year relationship sustained by fear. She says from being strangled, kicked, hit with objects, even shot, the danger kept her away from family and friends.
Like, I was shot, you know what I mean? So if he can shoot me, what's going to stop him from coming here and shooting my family?
About 1.5 years ago, a couple months after having a baby with her then boyfriend, Brown said she was suicidal and finally decided she and her baby had to leave.
I kept taking my phone away, and so I really didn't have a means of communication. I ended up, a friend of mine brought me a laptop, and I hid that laptop underneath my mattress, and I used that to email the Edmonton police.
She says a few days later, police knocked on the door and arrested her ex, who had an outstanding warrant for assaulting her in 2022. Brown and her son left their apartment, but had no place to go.
I called and called and called women's shelters and for weeks, and I kept getting told there's no room, we have no room, we have no room, we have no room.
She stayed at a motel about a month, struggling to find and keep government funding until...
I hear the knock at the door thinking that it's room service, and it ended up being him. And then I was stuck in this abusive cycle again with him until the April 10th incident.
That incident was Brown being hospitalized with a ruptured spleen.
I should never be put in a situation like that. It's not safe.
Brown's experience of being turned away from shelter is a common one. Wynn House is Edmonton's largest emergency shelter for people fleeing domestic abuse. So far this year, it's had more than 2,000 admission requests. 1,500 of those were turned away due to capacity, impacting more than 1,600 kids. It cites the housing crisis as the biggest factor for the crunch.
What's happening in our emergency shelters is we have no place to move people. And of course, we're not going to say, your 30 days are up, you got to leave.
Executive Director Leslie Allen says more affordable housing and second stage shelters where survivors can stay up to 2 years are desperately needed.
I think retrofitting some buildings are going to be probably our best option because that can be done relatively quickly.
Shelters are currently working together on a long-term plan to present to the government. Other initiatives to help will be launched in the coming weeks. One is centralized calling, so people looking for shelter don't have to call around to find space.
The thing that we have to do is actually allow the woman to go through a door.
I probably wouldn't have been able to make through all of this without the help of my family. They've been a great support. But a lot of women and a lot of people going through this, they don't have those supports.
Now permanently at her family's and with an emergency protection order in place against her ex, Brown is hoping to draw attention to flaws in the system, hoping someone who can make change will take notice. What is it like inside an emergency shelter? We head to one north of the city for a closer look at its operations and the pressure it's facing.
Obviously, one of the reasons why we're here is because Jessica Martel was murdered, right? So she was a young mom of 3 in Morinville that was murdered in 2009.
Her portrait is prominently displayed in a common area of Jesse's house, a guiding light and reminder to staff and the people staying here of what's at stake for domestic abuse survivors.
The day that you are leaving is obviously the most dangerous time for somebody to be leaving their partner because their partner at that time is losing control of this situation. We can accommodate larger families up to 5 or 6.
It's why shelters like this one refrain from publicly disclosing their address and ask clients to turn off GPS or other tracking features on their devices. They must also use a passkey to access the property and different spaces within it.
So this is our communal kitchen. This is our childcare space. So this unit is a fully accessible unit. Within this last year, we've taken about 2,500 calls for support.
Client advocate Kelly Ross takes those calls.
There's a lot. We have a lot of newcomers coming through.
Ross also does safety planning with clients.
Have a to-go bag. That's the number one thing. Whether it's petty cash, some toiletries, a change of clothes, all your ID, even if it's just photocopies of them, and have it in a place that you can escape from.
A stark reality for thousands of Albertans, one made more stressful by the lack of space at shelters.
The trend that we're seeing is because there is a lack of affordable housing that really is causing it's causing a crisis for most Albertans, but it's really impacting people that are trying to flee domestic violence.
Executive Director Marla Polzer says emergency shelters like this one are designed for up to 21-day stays. And right now, the average stay is much longer.
30 days, 60 days. We've had people here for 4 months.
The space crunch has meant Jesse's house has had to say no to more than 700 people who wanted to get in this year. The demand is even higher in Edmonton. So far this year, Win House, our city's largest emergency shelter, has turned away 1,500 people, or 75% of those who requested to stay.
Housing is the biggest piece right now. We just have nowhere for women to go.
The executive director of the Alberta Council of Women's Shelters says shelters are working together on solutions, but the sector is underfunded. She says she'd like to see the government invest in innovative housing options, such as retrofitting spaces like unused office buildings.
Because you build a new affordable housing, well, that doesn't pop up in a month, right? Like, it takes years to build a big facility like that.
Alberta's Child and Family Services Minister, Cyril Turton, declined an interview. His press secretary sent a statement that reads in part, "No one is ever turned away from a women's shelter without being offered help," adding people are provided support, including financial services, as they wait for shelter space. She also said the Alberta government spends nearly $56 million on women's shelters annually and is providing an additional $10 million this year.
We do get quite a few people that will come to our shelter from Edmonton.
Jesse's house is using a one-time grant to help clients pay for taxis to and from the Morinville shelter. A small but meaningful initiative as advocates push for systemic change. Advocates for domestic abuse survivors agree stopping the abuse before it begins is key to ending what is often a cyclical problem. A closer look now at a school program working to do just that.
If you look up here, I wrote, what makes an effective team? Who can give me some ideas of what makes an effective team?
Grade 7 students at Morinville's Four Winds School are quizzed on teamwork and then put to the test. Split into groups and given the task of protecting an egg with materials provided.
A lot of tape. Yeah, there, just keep wrapping it around.
Do they make a plan before taking action? Do they listen to each other's ideas? Questions the educational facilitator of this course will ask them after their defenses are tested.
Okay, do you want to check it? 3, 2, 1. That didn't sound bad at all.
A simple exercise in teamwork that educators hope will prepare these students for other challenges in life.
Whether that's finding their first job, having a relationship, or volunteering, we just want to give them a lot of tools so they can find success.
Yeah! This is the Inspire program, a twice-a-week class. The program started with girls 3 years ago and expanded to boys this school year.
Boys have just as many problems as girls, especially when it comes around regulating emotion, understanding their emotions.
Sarah Hall works at the Jessica Martel Memorial Foundation, which supports domestic violence survivors. Recognizing abuse is learned behavior. The foundation worked with this school to develop a preventative program for youth.
When we're younger, a lot of us aren't learning about boundaries. We're not learning what a healthy relationship looks like. Those things are modeled, in our own homes, and a lot of times they're in silos.
From discussing body image and internet safety to identifying one's core values and sharing with peers, Hall says the class serves as a safe space for students who, in adolescence, are navigating a challenging time.
Some of the problem is us parents, or there's maybe an unrealistic expectation that these things are being taught in the schools organically in the classroom, but that's unrealistic to expect any teacher to do. So giving all kids an opportunity to have a mentor outside of the regular circle can really be a game changer.
Hall says among Inspire students, she has personally seen improvements in attendance and boosts in confidence.
At the beginning, for example, we had one girl who never took off her headphones. About 2 months in, she would start taking her hood down, be sitting up straighter, paying attention. She would have her headphones on but have one off. And then by the end of the class, she didn't even bring her headphones.
The Family Center in Edmonton provides counseling and classes to people looking to better tumultuous relationships. One is a 16-week men's group that is sometimes mandated through court or children's services.
Very often, the guys have come from like their parents having that kind of relationship. I think a lot of them come with a sense of this is what a relationship looks like, and maybe has never ever seen a relationship that's been different than that.
Mark Frederick ran the men's group for several years. While early intervention is ideal, he says he's seen many have success later in life.
Part of it is not feeling that they're like alone in having these problems. Even if you feel that 99% of the problem is your partner, we're here to focus on the 1% that is yours that you can claim.
The Family Center offers drop-in counseling, same-day bookings, and subsidized services for low-income Albertans.
Guys, give yourselves a round of applause. You guys did a really good job today.
The Inspire program is being paid for through a one-time provincial grant. Those behind it are tracking its successes, hoping to prove it's worth investing in the years to come.
It's all about prevention because it's a whole lot more expensive and exhausting when you're trying to save people after the damage has been done.
Officials at the Jessica Martel Memorial Foundation say if provincial funding isn't renewed past next year, it will rely on community fundraising to continue. Well, that is all for this series. Thank you so much for watching.